Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the LYHL Podcast. I'm your host, Elle. Today it's just me, and we will be talking about rest. And I'm going to use the launching point of I just hosted a spring theme retreat, and this is an expansion of a offering I've done for some years, I think since 2017 or 2018. I've hosted a annual New Year's theme retreat, and that's where you're picking a theme or a word for the year after having just listened a little bit about what am I learning? What are the lessons that life is presenting to me that are asking for me to lean into, to grow, to expand, to make different decisions, to establish different patterns. And so I've done it annually for a long time, and this year for the first time, 2025, I am now doing it quarterly, and wow, I loved it so much. This was just this past Saturday, so I don't know the math. That's 5 days ago. And I want to go through the notes again. We just, hit spring equinox, daylight savings time happened, and the days are longer. There's energy. We're seeing flowers blooming, trees blossoming, fruit seasonal fruits like loquats here are coming up on the trees. Shout out to those of you who know what loquats are. Shout out to those of you who don't know. Come to Southern California, come to Los Angeles, and you can find them just in the medians, that portion in between the sidewalk and the road. A lot of people will plant their loquat trees there, and it's kind of like a apricot meets peach. Has big, it's like a stone fruit, so it has but the pits are smooth, and then it could have 1 to 4 pits. I'm sure there's some that have more pits than that. But I'm a stone fruit fan. Big time peach fan, although it's really hard to come by good ones. So anyway, a little bit of a diversion, but this is the time of year. It's like a time where I get excited, and I can just really lean into the go. And it was so wonderful to have. It was a 3-hour period of designated, I'm going to think about the bigger picture. I'm going to pull back. There's different ways to think about it. You can think you're pulling back, but you can also think I'm diving in. But the key thing is that there's a stopping, there's a pausing, there's a resting. And so today I wanted to talk about rest, and rest as a practice, as a discipline, rest as something that's essential, rest as resistance, rest as revolution, rest as joy, rest as holy. So rest is so many things, and I didn't have models to teach me how to rest. It wasn't until the crisis, and I'll say crisis, crisis of my separation in my marriage, and my decision to leave the marriage, our decision to end the marriage. And I have to be careful about crisis. I can say crisis because the crisis wasn't the leaving. That was very difficult, and there was a lot of challenges around it, and it wasn't a decision that we came to lightly, and it caused a lot of change and disruption in our lives. The crisis came from how the community and society interacted with us, and the lack of support. Like, people really need assistance in transitions like graduations, marriage, getting a new job, leaving a job, a death, a major illness, a move. There's so many I'm missing so many. Having a child. There's so many of these transitions, and we have traditions around them to help one another out. And divorce doesn't have those traditions about it. So that's just a little bit of backstory about why I say crisis. Like, the ending of the marriage, I think, can actually be quite healthy. Like, the reason why it ended is because it was no longer serving to honor and expand love, which I believe to be fundamental to why we should get married. It should be a pillar and example of love, but it wasn't. We weren't really able to do that anymore, and that this is not about an exposition of that and the why. This is about, I went through a crisis as people didn't support me in the ways that I needed in that transition. And so I had to do very significant things to take care of myself, and rest became very pivotal. Play became very pivotal. Beauty became very pivotal. Art became very pivotal. Creativity, nature became very pivotal. But the big umbrella of this is rest. Like, laughter became very, and joy became very pivotal. Like, so I leaned into like comedy and had a discipline, and still do expansive discipline of taking in humor and comedy. Dance became very critical. But all this, I had to rest, and I had to resist the go that my upbringing and society had conditioned me for. I had to know that it was okay. I had to know that it not only was it okay, it was essential to rest. But there was a need to resist. So in my resting, I'm resisting from forces that don't really care about my health and my well-being. So rest is resistance. Rest is essential. We need to sleep at night. Like, literally, if you don't sleep enough at night, it leads to early death. Like, we need to be getting, I think you need to be in the 7 to 9 hour window at night. To not do so is associated with increased mortality. And that is not insignificant. And that's not just then to perseverate that, but it's like, what are the things that are leading to inability to sleep? And I think a rest is really pivotal to that. So sleep, we need to sleep. But like, I used to wish I could be one of those people that could get by with 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours. Those people that you're just like, how do you get all this done? Because it made me feel so good to get things done. It felt very validating. This society, like, the more degrees you have, the more projects you have done, like, the more you're like here, there, and everywhere, like, the more you're honored and praised. I can think about just like how people treated me when I got accomplishments, like going from my master's degree to my doctoral degree in physical therapy. It was like so celebrated, or my fellowship, or these kind of things that actually can really leave you not very healthy. But I can write on a piece of paper, I can put on my resume, I can put on my CV. You can call me doctor now, right? These kind of things that culture and our society celebrates and elevates. And it can be really, really, really tricky to find rest. So it's a resistance, it's a grind, but it's essential. It's essential to our health and well-being. When in my ongoing work with clients and patients to help them be healthy, there's so much training that I have to do in slowing down because people move too fast. They're not even aware of what they're doing. They're not aware of how they're holding their body. They're not aware of if something's clicking. They're not aware if something's hurting. They're not aware if something's stiff. They don't know if their knee's going out or what their shoulder blade's doing, and there's this need to slow down, and they're not aware of how they're breathing. And so or slowing down, that kind of rest, and there's a lot of resistance even that people have to that of like, wow, this is going to take time. Wow, this is going to be like a really big shift. And it's like, yeah. And what a pathway to health this is. So rest is so important, and we can go on and on about these individual things that I brought up about how rest is there. I'm not going to go through the list again. You can rewind if you want it. But today I wanted to highlight the need for patterns of rest. And I just want to introduce the concept of like seasons of rest or patterns of rest. And so we need daily rest. We need to sleep every night, right? But sleep isn't the only rest. So learning what rest is. Rest, I think if you're trying to define it, needs to be something that you actually feel. So rest is rejuvenating. It needs to give you a sense of rejuvenation. Otherwise, it's not rest. Even if it's not productive, it's not rest if it doesn't leave you feeling better, more whole, recharged, rejuvenated. And that's really hard because a lot of us will maybe rest with something like TV or video games or watching a movie or, having drinks or something with people and, did I say scrolling on social media? Because we got to put that in there. There's so many things that we might do that don't actually leave us restful, that it makes us feel like lacking in some way. We end up feeling like comparison, jealousy, envy. So rest is rejuvenating. And we need that daily. So we need times where we can just be with ourselves. With the agenda isn't about productivity, but the rest is about restoration. Rest is, you think that's kind of similar, restoration, like how that word comes from. It should be restorative. It should be restoring you. And so restoring energy, restoring vitality, and just think how you feel after a sleep, after a nap, after and so rest can be so many things. But that needs to be evaluated. Like, is it leaving me rejuvenated, restored, refreshed? So we need that daily, but we also need that weekly. So like days off, right? We need to not work 7 days a week. And even in our spiritual traditions, things like Christianity, there's concepts like the Sabbath, and Jewish traditions have that as well. So does Muslim. There's so many religions that I'm not familiar with. It's this concept of, we need rest, we need celebration, and we need that. And think of our calendar, we're talking about that every 7 days, right? So we need weekly rest. We need monthly rest. So, so what does that look like? So what does daily rest look like versus weekly rest versus monthly rest? Then we might need a quarterly rest. So there, I led off with these retreats. So this is a practice for me. I'm so excited. I've wanted to do quarterly retreats, and I kind of envisioned, and maybe I can get to the place in my life where this happens, that I heard somebody talk about, and this like blew my mind, like in 2017, this couple, I was living in Portland for a brief time, and they talked about doing quarterly silent retreats. And I think they were going to kind of like monastic kind of places. And that sounded like, I was like, yes, that sounds so great. That sounds so healthy, so restorative. I would feel so reset. I was pretty sure after that. I have at times looked for places like that, but haven't gotten to the place that do that. And of course, we know there's challenges against that. Things like, you know, who's going to take care of the dogs? Like, what's the expense with that? Da, da, da. But quarterly retreats. So seasonally, we think like, oh, we just had our spring equinox. Soon it'll be summer solstice, then fall equinox, then winter solstice. So we need these rhythms. Maybe you need a half year, so a semi-annual time of rest. Then we need annual time of rest. And then biblically, there's this concept of Jubilee, where there's other features, and this is shared in, it comes from the shared history in Judaism of like a giving back, of like an equalizing of property, canceling of debts. So rest is, and it's about like partying, like feasting. We're just gonna like get everybody together and we're gonna be like, woo! That is like a practice that God cares about. That every 7 years, we're gonna do this kind of big thing, and it's not just gonna be all about accumulating and go go go. And that in certain workplaces is called like a sabbatical. You think Sabbath, sabbatical, they sound kind of like similar words. And when I went through the early portion of my separation and through that crisis, I was like, I have to do a sabbatical. And I had to call it a sabbatical to allow myself to do it, to not say like, oh, I'm having a breakdown or a... But I was so backlogged of like not resting that I had to do it. And in that rest period for me, that sabbatical was like 3 or 4 months. I had to, the first month, there was really just a lot of work that I had to do, and actually to allow myself to be able to be away and to be unplugged. And for 4 months, I like did not help heal a single person in my clinical work. Even family or friends that reached out, I was just like, sorry, this is time for me. This was all about rest. Like I don't have things to give right now. I really have to, like, things have been so pruned back in my life that I really have to get to my core vitality before I can expand, grow, blossom, and have things to offer to people again. And in that sabbatical time, I referenced a bit of this before, but nature became very important. 2 nights a week, I went out into nature and, unplugged, like no phone. And usually the first night was like, or first day was like, what am I doing here? This is like not going to help, like what's going on? And then 24 hours later, I would feel totally different, like just a different person. Optimism, like beauty would just seep into like the sunrises and the sunset and the bird sounds, and seeing lizards and squirrels, and I don't know, maybe I saw a deer, and just noticing wildflowers and rock formations and mountains and trees, and water, watching water come in depending on the setting where I was, and just letting it restored me. It changed me. I was rejuvenated. I was not the same as when I arrived. I bought a watercolor set, a real small, like travel one 4x6 and 10 colors, and that was not a skill set I had, but I was just gonna play and explore, and I did it. I journaled. I wrote songs. I even compiled an album, and there's like a video out there of just in kind of MTV, like put some video that I had like to the music, just as I processed that season. And that EP demo quality EP was called Therapy, and the name of my group for me as an artist, RMF. And what else did I do? I finished book. I did my last draft of my book and then did all the work to get that published out. The comedy. So there was there was a show I really wanted to watch, and so I would set a time before bed and just watch that every night until those 1 or 2 seasons of that show was done. I did physical therapy. I did talk therapy, mental health therapy. What else was I doing? I was eating really well. I was making sure to exercise. I was just doing it all. And these things can all be rest again. So when I went to the mountains, I know it was rest because at first I was like, ugh. And then I went and did it and I was a different person. And it was like, oh, I've got to do this. And we have to play around with these rhythms. We have to find it, but we need daily rest. So for me, what could that look like? So for me, with my neurodivergence, I do well I still have never reached this consistently, but if I can lay down or take a 5-minute break every hour, I feel my cells just it's just really regulating, super, super helpful. So you might need rest every hour, and who knows what portion of the hour that needs to be. But how can you work that in your into your day, into your life? What does it look like weekly? So I've been working on having an actual Sabbath, where even though in evangelical Christianity, I don't think we followed the Sabbath as maybe we didn't go do everything, but the Sabbath talks about not even biblically it talks about not even going grocery shopping, not even Jesus got in trouble on the Sabbath for wanting to for helping somebody, or his disciples gathering food from a field. That was too much. But the whole idea is that you have prepped enough that you have a rest day. So yesterday was a rest day for me. It's in the middle of the week, so I don't have back-to-back rest days, but I have my 2 rest days. One is more productive, pay it forward kind of rest, where if I get stuff done around the house, then I feel better later. But that can't be rest all the time, and I can't have rest, and I need rest where I'm socially connecting to people, but I'm introverted, and that can't be all my rest. And I can't have it too structured, because time, as somebody that's neurodivergent, there's a huge rub against the time culture in the US. That's just my brain, and how I relate to time is very different than how the US, and it's very hard to have this structure. Do you need to be here and do all these kind of things? Because my brain is very excited about ideas and thoughts and connections, and there's a fluidity and lots of movement happening in my head, so it's hard to be really rigid. So rest for me yesterday is a rest day, where it's I really just do what I want to in the moment, because what I decide what'll be restful, because sometimes what we think will be restful, I learned this the hard way. What I thought would be fun or restful on a weekend, a Friday, is not necessarily, because I'm often too tired as an introvert. Friday night, I'm too tired to go out, and as a young person, I wanted to fit in and do all the things, and it made me, the story I told myself was that I was a loser or something was wrong with me. I felt ashamed if I didn't have plans on a Friday night. And I actually couldn't fully enjoy being alone on Friday night, because I felt well, why didn't people invite me? Even though I didn't necessarily have the energy or want to go out, and I literally would make myself sick. So a lot of my life, earlier life, any illness I had was just from pushing myself too hard. So I'd get sick, and if I could just have a good night's sleep, I felt better. And if you find yourself getting sick a lot, and this can even be diagnosed kind of things there's probably something about rest where you're not taking care of yourself. Women are particularly susceptible to this, even when we're talking something diagnosable like autoimmune diseases that occurs 80% in women. This is something that's really been brought to the forefront of my mind. I feel a lot of kindredness with this man, Gabor Mate. I would love for him to come on this podcast at some point. But his book, The Myth of Normal, I highly recommend it. Talks about just toxic culture and how that brings disease in our bodies. So even things that are diagnosable, even visible kind of things, can come from just stress. And how do we deal with stress? Rest. So finding what's healthy and restful. So weekly. That's what I've worked on, and I found that I do better with working a few days grouped together, then a rest day, a few more days, rest day. So not a traditional like Saturday, Sunday. Even right now, I work on Sundays because that aligns with my partner's work schedule better and allows me to be accessible to patients and clients in a way that offers an advantage and a gift, a resource to them, where it's not bumping into their work schedules typically. So weekly rest, so important. So what did I do yesterday on my rest day? Let's see. Slept in, so no alarm. And, sometimes I might get up early, but yesterday was I think I slept 10 and a half hours because I needed it. I've been pushing. I've been doing these open mics, and so scary. It's gotten better, and I had just done one 2 nights before where I invited somebody to play with me and didn't really practice, and for him that's fine because he's been a musician forever. He's in his 70s, and that was easy. I could show him my song and he could play along. But for me, it caused it was a big stretch. And that's what these open mics are about, growing. And growing, you need rest. If you're trying to learn something, you need rest. And I did a podcast recording with a loved one. I'm so excited to share that with you yesterday. And I found myself just feeling different. And then I just realized this is carryover from the night before, plus the emotions of this podcast. I love talking about how to live your healthiest life with people. It's a very dear topic to me. It's invigorating, but sometimes it touches on vulnerability, and family for me right now is a tenuous place because of circumstances. Let's just leave it at that. And so yesterday just slept in. That was so great. And then, just hanging out with the dogs, taking care of them. I don't even know why I'm doing this. This is one of the worst things for me to do, remember what I did yesterday. But I know I went to the park. That was going to be a highlight. I knew I wanted to go to this park that I love. I was going to take the dogs. I was going to read. We were going to hang out in the sun. If I needed to be in the shade, I would do that. I reached out to my 70-year-old neighbor, Jose. We're going to play soccer. And I had to be careful with that. I couldn't plan more than that in a day because that could really mess up my rest. And I have to think about it and learn. So part of rest for me has even been communicating my needs, my wants, my desires, so that I can have that rest. Rest has been, so I turned off my phone a number of occasions, literally turned it off, and my partner was working, and so I reached out and, hey, I love you, how's your day going, these kind of things, and then also her, letting her know, and she knows that I need to get away, right, because otherwise I get sucked into being on Instagram, being on YouTube, being seeing what emails or things are kind of coming in. So there's this tension between needing to connect to people, but learning what actually brings connection, right? And so I might want to connect to somebody, but most of the time me scrolling on Instagram doesn't do it. I need to have like an intention for how to connect with people. So so turning off the phone, but letting her know that. And I needed to communicate that, like, hi, I won't be available. Is there anything you want to let me know? Kind of, here's how long I expect it to be, kind of that sort of thing. That was super important for me to rest. So time away from the screen, time away from electronics. Let me show you, for those of you watching on video on YouTube, I Mod Podge this. Isn't that so exciting? It's so beautiful. I can't wait to do it this fall when the leaves are fresher. These ones because I think this is like a beautiful purple or red when earlier on in dying. So for those of you that are not on video, I just held up an image of a leaf that I Mod Podge. I can't think of a generic term, so I'll say the brand name, Mod Podge, to adhere and secure this leaf, preserve this leaf. And then I have a series of these hung up in my bedroom. I love nature, I love plants, and so doing that was very therapeutic. Like, when I see it, I get excited, right? Now I have one more to hang up. So creating beauty is very restful. I played guitar yesterday. I texted friends, and I did it like kind of concisely in those times in between turning off my phone. Like I said, I did some reading, a new book, old book, journaling, a little bit of writing. And then just eating things that feel good. For some people, like, cooking is a thing. And I have this habit of a healthy thing that I eat are these yogurt parfaits. And a lot of times on rest days, I'll just think about what I really want and look in the cupboards. And so for me, like a rest day like that, I want to have things in the cupboard, not go out shopping. For some people, they might like going out shopping. For me, resting is I want to have it all here. I've turned increasingly into a homebody as I've invested in my home space. I used to, it used to be different. I still enjoy going out, but now I'll often want to stay in because my home feels so good and so inviting. So rearranging furniture can feel really restful. Getting plants can feel really restful. Sometimes I might want to do things like taking care of the compost or flowers. I walked yesterday and brought some flowers in from the walk, put those in the kitchen. I don't know the name of this sort of like succulent kind of plant, and it was like hanging off, like a branch broke off from somebody that had a bunch. And so I was like, I'm going to take that and transplant it. So I put that out in the front yard there was just like this brown patch that I've been nurturing. So nurturing beauty, really, really helpful. So those are some things, and I think I watched a TV show. Those are things that are, like for me yesterday, that were really restful. Quarterly, we talked about, could be something like a retreat. So monthly, so things for me that I found out is to get outside weekly is restful in nature. If I can spend a good chunk of a day, definitely hours, even better if I can spend longer. But right now I don't find that I have like the time because I just because of work, this season of work, I can't be away as long as regularly. But usually if I can spend a weekly rhythm of rest, I need to get in nature every day. So right now that looks like several hours minimum, but if I can do a half day, whole day, that's better. That's like my long term. I know that's really, really good for me for rest. And then monthly, to have at least an overnight out in nature. So camping somewhere, being very close to nature. Trees are really, really important to me and my well-being. If I can get around big trees, I feel a really big reset. You might relate to that. So like oceans, trees are big ways to connect. And if you've never touched a tree, just touch a tree. You can put your hand on it, give a hug. Tree hugging is like literally like a thing, and not a thing to make fun of people for. You can laugh about it, but you can laugh because you become a tree hugger, because trees communicate. Trees are, so, and if you're not familiar with that, there's plenty of science out there, like Suzanne Simard, The Mothering Tree, or Finding the Mothering Tree, I think is the name of the book. But yeah, just connect to nature. Then quarterly, so it might be, I know people that will, in a couple, like in a partnership, they'll take turns and go overnight to like a hotel if they have kids, get away from kids. We don't have human children, we just have the dog. So sometimes a break for me, like a break from the kids. Sometimes for my partner, it's for her to be with her little one, because she's so busy right now. She doesn't get a lot of time with the dogs, where a lot of my work, I'm more available now to the dogs, and so I kind of need a break from that. So it could be paying for an overnight to a bed and breakfast, or to a hotel, or going camping like we talked about. But maybe that's a whole weekend. So just last weekend too, I took a road trip. Road trips are awesome, restful, restoring for me. Went up to the Bay Area, hugged and touched some redwoods, spent some time walking and running among them, and talking and communing with them, and seeing the ocean, and watching the sunrise and sunset. Then we got to think like semi-annually. So a lot of times we think of that with vacations, and learning how to do staycations is awesome, so that finances, because really once you learn how to be with yourself, you find that you don't need money. And a lot of this is connected to breath. We're not going to talk about that today, other than say like a daily, throughout the day discipline of working with your breath is so restful. So restful. And if you can do that and connect to that, like, you're going to find just a joy to be content kind of almost anywhere, because nobody can take that away from you. You always, as long as you're alive, you have access to your breath, and nobody can take that from you. And it's such a grounding, centering, healing, whole place within you. So staycations can be awesome, but just learning like how to do that for you. You don't have to have a lot of money to take these times away. And then just being creative with people, whether it's swapping childcare or dog care, or even like switching homes with somebody or something like that. Like, because if you can get out of your setting, that's really helpful, right? Annual, so maybe a bigger trip annually. Again, doesn't have to be a trip. It can just be a dedicated time of rest at home, or doing trips in your neighborhood, or projects around the house, or just lots of like sleeping, napping, reading books, writing poetry, reading poetry, playing musical instruments, getting connected to the flora and fauna around you. One of the restful things, I meant to do it before recording this video, I'm pointing at the window. There's a bird feeder swaying there right now. I've got some birds that will be very happy once I fill that up. I meant to do that because then I could have been sitting here looking at it while I'm talking to you. But it can be very, very simple. Feeding birds can be very restful. Gardening, like picking a flower, like just even looking at a dandelion, looking at the dew on the grass when you're sitting, meditating, watching the way the light falls in through the window, and through a glass of water, and just seeing how it reflects and refracts and all that. Developing an eye for beauty is very restful. So, but just spend more time doing it annually. And then the thing that crisis taught me, the end of the lack of support that I got in the transition away from my marriage, was the need for sabbatical. I had been a physical therapist at that point, let's say 3 years ago, I don't know, 15, 16 something plus years, and I just hadn't had an extended year off or time off of planned rest. And I really think even 3 or 4 months isn't quite enough. I think especially when I had to do all that work on the front end. But if you can plan for it, so that was like my big takeaway. And I told my students that I interacted with that they're before they launch their career to be thinking, planning, and saving. Okay, I'm gonna take these trips, but what am I gonna do every 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, where I take this big extended rest that allows you to get away from, because we find so much value in helping each other in the work that we do and the productivity, and that gets like really entrenched in our identity, and it's really, really helpful to separate ourselves from that. And that's what we're doing when we're rest. We're learning that we just are enough just as we are, that we're a miracle, that we're the life is a miracle. And once you know that, it just transforms everything. It's like putting on glasses, and you get to see things differently. So rest is so critical, and it's a practice. So you just aren't going to be born good knowing how to do it, because as soon as you're born, people have been caring for you for years and years before you can make your own decisions, before you could live by yourself. There's decades of people caring for you, and you've been imprinted by their behavior, what they've said, what they've done, how they've lived their life. And so and they may have been good at rest or not. And even if they were good at rest, how they rest is not how you are going to 100% need to rest, because you're your own unique self. Oh man, I loved talking about this. This was a longer conversation than I thought I was going to have. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I would love to hear your thoughts about rest. There's definitely much more to unpack about this. So what are you learning about rest? What things are you trying? Are you having breakthroughs? Where are your frustrations? Where, do you feel like you had a good foundation in rest, but you're just kind of learning and tweaking? Or is rest a completely new thing? For me, rest was completely new. It was completely new. It's really just been a couple years because my brain would freak out when I slowed down. It would freak out. It told me not to. And it screamed all these kind of insecurities and all these kind of lies. And that's ego. And ego is driven by shame. And an unhealthy ego is driven by shame. And so, so it's great that I have had a profession like helping people and healing people. And that's not what makes me worthwhile to take up space and to breathe, and me just being me and you just being you. So thanks so much for being here. Beloveds, may you always see the blessing. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of the LYHL Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. If you liked what you heard, you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at the Elle, as well as on my website, www.theellebetrell.com. Of course, you can find me back here at the next episode of the LYHL Podcast. There's numerous ways to support my work so I can keep helping you live your healthiest life. You can do this financially via links on my website or the show notes, by subscribing to the podcast and YouTube channels, by joining my newsletter community, aptly named the LYHL Newsletter, by rating the podcast, by sharing with others, those you meet, and participating in coaching sessions. It's my passion to help you live your healthiest life. I'm so glad you're here. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what you're learning and the insights you're gaining from these conversations. May you always see the blessing.